no. I forgot to unmic our microphones. There we go. There we go. We're back in. We're deep in the zone. Yes, everybody. Hello. Welcome. It is UK Cowboys TV. It's Thursday. It's 9. So it's UK Cowboys time. Episode 49 of episode 4. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Who's ready for the draft?
I have to say I'm feeling better this now. I mean, I think the beginning of this week I was about as deflated as one of Tom Brady's footballs, but I'm back up now. So
yes, so it's a Fan Rant special, guys. As we do every season, as soon as the Cowboy season's over, wherever it finishes, the next episode, which should be a pre-game show, is a Fan Rant. So basically, you take over the show. We will talk and fill in, but whatever you say, you control the show. Your questions, comments, quotes, whatever it is, get it off your chest and be part of the big heel, as they say. So while we wait for all the comments to come in and what have you, Paul is going to join us too. We don't know where he is. Hope he's okay. I was abusing him earlier, so hopefully he's not taking it to heart.
And if everybody is watching, thanks for tuning in. I know obviously at the same time Mike McCarthy's having his final debriefing conference, so
yes,
typically schedules at the same time as ours.
Yeah, I mean, like everything we ever seem to do always seems to be the same time. I think it's just because like most of their stuff they do early afternoon, and for us the evening time when we come on, so we always seem to clash. That's just the way it goes.
Yep.
Oh, no, here he is. Maybe.
Oh.
And we'll give him a nice surprise now once he joins in. So Paul's just booting up. Looks like he's just sorting some bits and pieces out. But I haven't seen you much, Graham. I haven't spoken to you in quite some time.
Yeah.
So I'll get your take first of all, because we was on the post-game show on Tuesday. Obviously I didn't speak to you either, Lum. Generally, from when you think how week 1 went with the Bucks, and obviously everything that happened pre-season as well, how do you think the season went as a whole, just generally, from start to finish?
I think I would be amiss if I said that it didn't go like I expected it to, because I think at some point I was ready to mail it in.
Yeah.
I think after the Dak injury, I thought, like we're going to be so far behind in the division. I didn't see the Commanders and the Giants having the season that they did. But in early spring, I predicted that the Eagles had the best offense in the division. And I thought we could keep pace with them, but when you see Dak go down, you think, ouch, that's going to set us back 4 or 5 games. And that turned out to not be the case. So to finish the season with the record that we did, win the wild card round, I have to say it turned out better than I thought it was going to be. I did think we were going to go further. I like to have a laugh and a joke about picking at 32 and going to the Super Bowl and going to see the Lombardi, but I did think we could at least make the championship round. But let's face it was 1 game off. It's not as if we're picking first.
Yep.
You know,
I have to agree. I mean, it's obviously it's a successful failure, if you want to classify it as that. I had a Packers friend of mine on to me on Tuesday and said, "No, you're awfully quiet this week," and all this sort of stuff, trying to rile me up. And I said, "Well, what do you want to talk about? The fact that the Cowboys have been to the playoffs as many times as the Packers in the last 3 years. 2 back-to-back 12-5 seasons. I think at the start of the season we all kind of said we've maybe got 1 game less than the 12-5, so we were all probably predicting 11-6 based on what we looked like on paper. you've obviously you have overcome a lot of things like Tyron going out before even a snap's been played in anger. First game of the season that goes down. Various trials and tribulations throughout the year. You've got guys that are stepping in that in the past where it was whenever you heard the word next man up, the next man up screwed the pooch basically, and you didn't have anything. And in the past, say when Romo went out, we were doomed to like a 6-10 season or whatever. So I think from that point of view, it's positive, and we actually went 1 week further this year. In terms of and we got the whole monkey off our back of winning a playoff game on the road in our blue uniforms, and bar some poor execution at points on Sunday. We were in that game again. I mean, it's not. Yeah, everybody seems to be harking on it, the whole last play of the Cowboys season and all that sort of stuff, which I think, I can understand what they were doing. I think the worst thing is the fact that the 49ers had a timeout, so the 49ers could actually take the time to say, right, well, if they do line up like this is how you defend it. If they hadn't had that timeout, it might have gone a bit more successful, but at that point in time, you're talking that it was less than 0.1% chance that you were actually going to win it, or come back into that game. So it was worth trying anything you could.
I find it tough to take criticism from a team that's picking before us on draft night.
Yep.
It's
Oh,
bit strange.
Joe was giving me the first rant about Callum Moore.
Round 1, fight.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about the whole keeping Callum Moore thing?
Yeah, like we were talking pre-show, and I don't know about you guys, but my whole Twitter feed today has been, this is why Kellen Moore is good for the Cowboys. This is why Kellen Moore is a head coach candidate for a reason. Kellen Moore is this, Kellen Moore is that. And then the other side go, we're fed up seeing the same mistakes from Kellen Moore. We want change. We want something different. We want to be further in the playoffs and so on. He's a very Marmite coach. You either hate Kellen Moore or you love Kellen Moore. Obviously, the Joneses love Kellen Moore. That's up to them. I've been hating on Kellen Moore, but I do take their point that he is getting head coaching jobs for a reason.
Well, the reason simply is that last year, number 1 in points per game on offense. This year, 4th. Every year. And think he was 4th in points per game, Graham, this year on offense. And he did that with a backup quarterback for the first quarter of the season.
He did. Yeah. He did. Yeah. This is why it's so tough. Because obviously you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you could go to another team and win 3 Super Bowls.
True.
That's the type of guy that he is. You also have to ask yourself: are they putting those numbers up in spite of Kellen Moore? Are these guys?
You're not going to know, are you?
Exactly. This is why it's such a great debate, because to play professional football and start, you've got to have a bit of knowledge about you anyway. Is our offense at a certain level where they can go out and win games on their own? They don't need somebody telling them what to do. Dak's intelligent enough to change things, to run things, that change it if he doesn't like it, overcome things.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. It really is a tough one.
Yeah. I think as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I've been pro Kellen Moore. It is difficult for an offensive coordinator. As you know, Brian was having a wee rant on Sunday night during the game, and I'd sort of came in with that. You know, there's a difference between what Kellen Moore is putting, what Kellen Moore is putting out as a game plan, and how it's actually executed by the players. Now, you know, when you look at you know, when RJ and Logan the boys put the simulation and what they reckon the scoreline is each week, you know, and you saw that. You saw that Commanders game where they predicted it was going to be 45-0. That's playing it on Madden, where, you know, all the factors are fairly controlled and everything like that. And I don't know what setting RJ has it on for that, but you know, it doesn't really count the fact that Michael Gallup hasn't done his shoelaces up or on a play or something like that. And
I'm going to see that play for a long, long time.
But what I do think, I think that Dak has regressed this year and I think it's the relationship between Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott, that Kellen Moore was a teammate, then got promoted to quarterbacks coach, then got promoted to offensive coordinator. And therefore, you know, the relationship has been almost buddy all the time. And you need to actually sit Dak down in the film room and say, don't throw that pass, don't throw that pass, throw that pass, throw that. You know, and we don't have that situation. So I think you do need to bring somebody else in. And whether it's somebody like bringing back John Kitna, you know, or bringing somebody else in who doesn't have that relationship with Dak, that's where we need to go next. And obviously we are seeing some turnover with some of the offensive coaches. It's still possible that Kellen ends up, if Dan Quinn gets a job, which again, you know, he seems to be high up on a lot of the teams. You know, maybe he's going to get picked up. Does he then suddenly say, "Well, look, Kellen, you're probably on a better thing if you come away with me"? You know, and if he expresses to Jerry that he wants to go, Jerry will just let him go. You know, so you know, he wants to see Kellen Moore succeed. If Kellen Moore feels that he needs to do it somewhere else, I think Jerry will let him go with his blessing, you know.
Well, the good thing is we've got Paul with us now, and he can actually tell us how to be positive at a time like this and join the big heel. And he'll tell
I'm
you
all
how.
about happy hours and bars now, where you can get your $2 beer. Oh, for goodness sake.
It's all about happy hour.
You've really, really went down with the whole audio edits for this one, haven't you?
I've been busy today, mate.
Good Lord. Well, apologies for being late.
That's all right.
I guess I had to make the dramatic entrance and by welcome that by a voiceover of my previous comments. So the internet is definitely not safe in my matter.
Well, here's another one. Andy's come in with a comment. Obviously, it's about making progress, divisional round seedings. So we as Cowboys fans shouldn't have to settle for divisional rounds. But divisional round seems to be the ceiling. What do you think there, then?
Round one, fight.
Oh, good Lord. I do like Mortal Kombat, to be fair. I totally agree. We should always be looking for the end goal, which is getting the ring, lifting that Super Bowl trophy no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look in hindsight, yeah, it has been a successful season in terms of when you look at the record and stuff like that, but behind that comes with a lot of distortion. And Lauren made a great point in regards to Kellen Moore and having more buddy relationship with Dak. Whereas on the field type of thing, where it's kind of being pretty evident, there's certain games where it really suits us, like Vikings, etc. We've completely dominated that game, and there's games where we should never ever have been in that position, never. I.e. the Jags, i.e. the Texans game. and the few quarters against the Colts. Don't get me wrong, we completely flip-sided that in that fourth quarter. I know we keep using these same references, but it's still valid talking points. But yeah, I'm just kind of not sure, man. I'm really not sure.
All right. I mean, Joe, yeah, he's saying anything less than a Super Bowl. I mean, obviously,
I agree.
That's how we all go.
Round
But
two,
yeah,
fight.
It's all show. It's going to be all show.
This is going to really kick off the new season. Fantastic now.
I get where Joe's coming from.
Yeah,
I do. It seems like teams go up and down. You know, sometimes they'll have a couple of bad years. They'll draft well. They'll come back up to the playoffs. Doesn't work out for them. They might be dropped down to the early teens. They'll go either way from there. It doesn't feel like it now. But as Cowboys fans, we're actually in a better off position than a hell of a lot of teams.
yeah.
We're in our own Cowboys bubble, and we all want the best for the Cowboys. Obviously, we all want Super Bowl. But
Sorry, Grim, just to see what you're saying there. A lot of that is all down to the mainstream media putting that narrative onto our own fans, and we're eating it up, and we're actually fighting amongst each other right now.
Yeah. I mean, imagine being a fan of a team that hasn't had a quarterback for
Fight.
the past 2 decades, constantly picking in the top 5. You know, you can be in your bed by midnight because your team's always picking in the top 5. Would you trade our position for that? No, of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I get it's Super Bowl of failure, but 30 teams suffer that every year without fail. I know it's tough. There's only one Lombardi. There's only a handful of head coaches who feel like you can get there. I know it doesn't feel like it, but Mike McCarthy does have a Super Bowl ring. We could be a lot worse. We could be a lot worse.
Just to put this in comparison here, when you look at the playoff run we had in, was it 2014, the no catch with Des Bryant, we lost that game due to controversy. When we played, we actually played well that year, and it was on a consistent basis. Then obviously there was the done with Spire with Scott Linehan. Less said, be that the better. But when you look at the 2 playoff runs we've had with Kellen Moore, we've had great games during that season. We've had bad games. And when it comes to the playoff game, we absolutely we crapped the bed pretty much.
Joe, we're not criticizing. But trust me on this, we are not criticizing. We all feel exactly the same way. We're just trying to make things a little bit easier.
The one thing I'd say, Tom Landry and Jimmy Johnson both had it easy because in those days there was no salary cap to play with. You held on to the rights of players until you discarded them. And even if you trade, even if somebody was out of contract, you would have to negotiate with that player first of all, but you would then have to give some sort of compensation to the team that you were pinching the player from,
because they own the rights.
Because they owned the rights until that person died. Effectively, you owned the rights for them. And because of that, guys like Landry, Jimmy Johnson, they were able to build year on year on year on. We're now looking at the moment, we've signed a whole lot of futures players now, but as soon as the end of the season there, final whistle on Sunday, 43 guys were still on the roster. Everybody else gets the P45 at their exit interviews and comes in with a black bag and walks out because they don't know whether they're going to be back or anything like that. Each year, you're back starting at square one effectively. It just depends how much of a base you have. So it is a hell of a lot harder now than in the Landry and Jimmy Johnson eras to actually get to the Super Bowl. And you got to remember that at the end of each season, only one team is lifting that trophy.
Yep.
And as Mike McCarthy says, you need all 67 guys or however many guys you got on the roster. You need to have all of them stepping up and contributing.
And just to let you know, in the press conference, Mike McCarthy has declined to answer if Kellen Moore will be back. So,
interesting. Oh my God!
Just a positive there. Just a positive for you.
Oh well,
I mean, he's not gonna.
I mean, I can bring it back down. I can bring it back down for you, Paul.
Ontario Paul's been picked up.
Busy day in the Poland household.
Oh my goodness.
Nah, yeah, it feels rotten now, but I'd rather be picking 26th and 6th. Tell you that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Tell you that.
All right, let's see what else we've got here. What else have we got? My concern is 2 seasons. Oh, here we go. All right, so concern is for 2 seasons in a row, we've won 12 games, lost in the playoffs because quarterback went bad. We're sat 9-3 November. How do you get excited knowing what's likely coming in the postseason?
Round 1, fight.
Who wants to answer that then?
That's actually quite a hard one to kind of think about, actually.
I mean, the positives are.
I'll have a go at it. Andy finished his question by saying, "What's likely coming in the postseason?" The postseason, like, when was the last time the Houston Texans were in the postseason?
Yeah,
you know, it's a weekly game. The postseason. It can be good, it can be bad. Obviously, if it's bad, you're out. Only 2 teams survive it. It's meant to be that way. That's why the viewing figures are so high. On Dak, can you really blame the Michael Gallup throw on Dak at all?
Yeah, you can't. It's 50-50.
The argument with it is, when was he ever open? But Michael Gallup's our number 2 receiver, and I expect at least a 50-50 ball.
I mean, here's one for you, Gray. I mean, would you, the way Michael Gallup's played this year, would you call him a number 2 wide receiver just from this year's play alone?
If you take money out of it, no.
Yeah.
No, I think if you take money out of it, he's probably number 3.
Well, here's the ironic thing, right? Do you want to know on wide receivers, if you put all the way in, which include the tight ends, and you look at receiving EPA for the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb is right at the very top, and it's not even close. Number 2 is Jake Ferguson. Number 3 is T.Y. Hilton.
I mean, T.Y. Hilton. We picked T.Y. Hilton up, 3 weeks ago?
4, 5.
Yeah,
I mean, really?
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what, mate? Just off the top of my head, I don't have the stats, but I would have said that Noah Brown was number 2.
No, it's not even close.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he's negative. Actually, I think it was negative EPA because of the fumbled catches.
I was just thinking in terms of targets and receptions,
and length of time, and No, see what they were the top 3. CeeDee Lamb. When you look at the bar graph, you imagine the bar graph there. CeeDee Lamb's all the way up here. Then you got like Ferguson here, T.Y. Hilton there, and all the other guys are right on the edge of the line, barely giving you a point.
I mean, the thing about Gallup is some players, when they come back from an ACL injury, they either hit the ground running and they burst out with something to prove, or you have guys that, for a season, it's there mentally. It's much the same as, this year you're seeing Dak running with the ball a bit more. Last year, there was times where we were screaming at Dak to get out and run, and that would have given another dimension to the offense. I I think that's going to be the case with Michael Gallup, and Michael Gallup will come back next year, and he will live up to the number 2 status.
You'd hope so.
You'd certainly hope so for the contract that you gave him as well.
And you would think as well, Lorne, given the difference between this year and the year before, the only thing that's separating that is an ACL injury. So obviously that's got a part to play.
Yep.
Go on, carry on. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you should see Gallup back better next year. Obviously, we're now talking that, you know, if Kellen Moore's not back, you're maybe going to see a bit more of a West Coast style offense. Does that improve Gallup's chances as well? Although it's kind of surprising that, you know, obviously Joe Philbin's been released as well. So, you know, and what's interesting is Joe Philbin is one of these guys, like, if you want to go back to 2020, Mike Nolan, who Mike McCarthy brought in because it's an old boys network. You know, Mike McCarthy was Mike Nolan gave McCarthy a job when he became head coach of the 49ers. Tom Sula came in because he was part of Mike Nolan's staff as well. You know, and then a couple of years ago, he obviously had to go out with his friends network to bring in Dan Quinn. You know, and now he's slowly getting rid of some of these guys again. So it'll be interesting to see who we fill these roles with and see how it goes forward as well. You'll certainly get an idea. You know, once they start making these appointments, you'll get an idea of what sort of offensive philosophy you're going to be bringing in.
Yeah, because I mean, Stephen comes in here and he reiterates about Kellen Moore needing to move on. So it's something in common, but I just
my problem with Kellen Moore is the consistency.
That is the trouble.
It's the consistency. Can we not? It seems to be 1 week it's Team 40 Burger, the next week it's 10 points, and we're hoping to God that the defense makes a 4th and goal stand.
Here's one for you, Graham, and you guys are going to get a laugh at this one. Do you think Kellen Moore's bipolar? Because one day he's a genius, one day he's a completely different person with that playbook.
Disgusting!
Yes.
Like, I'm one for harping back, and I remember Dak and Zeke as rookies, and the glorious running game we used to have. There was hardly any fancy trickery. There was hardly any Zeke lining up at center. All these quick reverses and quick outs and all that kind of stuff. We didn't need it. Why? Because we were so good at it. The people outside the stadium knew what the Cowboys were going to run, and it didn't make any difference. They got the first down. It was just that good. It was just that good. I don't get why it's so different nowadays. I would love to go into Kellen Moore's playbook and cut out the end arounds and the quick out to trips and so on. It just get the ball out of Dak's hands early, but defenses in the NFL know how to set the edge, and for me it was become frustrating that it wasn't surprising anybody. You were asking the corner to make the tackle, and I'm struggling to think when a quick out went for a first down. I mean, maybe I'm just being awkward about it, but did any of them
I think you're trying to say we didn't see it often, like becoming a first down.
Yeah, did it ever pay off? I don't know. Maybe it did. Maybe I'm just taking part in the Fan Rant Show, but yeah.
Is that in the game plan or is that in the execution by the players? Because, you know, one of the things that Andy Reid's been lauded for in that game there at the weekend, when Pat Mahomes went down with his high ankle sprain and refused to come out, basically, okay, Henny had a couple of drives, but then Mahomes came back in. They realised Mahomes couldn't run a wide out handoffs or anything like that. So they changed the game plan, and they did start bringing in wide receiver screens and things like that to get the ball out on the perimeter, and they were able to move the ball. So it works for other teams. Why is it not working for us? And is that the coordinator? Is that the position coaches? Is that the players themselves having a brain fart in the middle of the game? Ultimately, yes, it is the coordinator's responsibility to make sure everybody is up for the game, keyed for the game, and knows their responsibility. And there's got to be consequences. If you miss a block, you go and sit down or something like that. Somebody put somebody else in there, and drive it in. That it doesn't matter if you're a $50 million wide receiver. Go and do your job. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting on the bench for 2 plays or whatever. That's the annoying thing, is that we don't, and it also the number of times Dak comes to the line and goes, kill, 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 kill. Is he then calling the play? And yeah, it'll be a play from is in the playbook, but is that one that Kellen Moore has suggested is the one that he should be running? And it's all depends on what Dak sees, but is Dak seeing, obviously this year there's been a lot of questions on Dak's judgment this year. So is he seeing something different that he shouldn't be seeing?
I've got a question for you guys. Mind when Micah Parsons came out and spoke about and praised Dan Quinn, like all the players rally up to Dan Quinn. How many players in the offense do you think actually rally up to Kellen Moore?
Finish him.
Well used, Mike. Well used. It's a fair argument. I don't see many of our offensive players speaking in praise of Kellen Moore's doing a great job, blah blah blah, etc. It's like, oh, he has my back or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you're literally seeing it from the other side of the ball, where Parsons and D-Law and Pierce and everybody, like even the
people talk about Bones Fossil.
Exactly. Even there you go. There's an example. All of our out of our 3 coordinators, Kelly Moore's the only one who's not getting the same.
It doesn't get talked about.
It doesn't get talked about.
Maybe that's
we get it. We get it a lot from the media and the staff themselves, but the players don't say it.
Nope.
Maybe that's what's tripping him up in these meetings. That he's not he's not a player's guy.
I mean, he's got to be doing something right, though, to be able to have performed the way he did. Because, we've even seen him do it this year, perform without Dak. And we won. And we beat last year's Super Bowl teams with Kellen Moore as the coordinator, albeit the defense played quite well. But the offense still did this part. They still played their role, and they were doing it with broken parts.
That's why.
Go on, Gray.
That's why it's such a great debate. It really
is. Polarizing. It's definitely polarizing.
No wonder so many fans sit on the fence, because which Kellen Moore is going to turn up every Sunday? Is it going to be the Kellen Moore that lays a 40 burger, or is it going to be the Kellen Moore that's calling strange plays and strange situations, and these offense aren't clicking, and it's taking them to the fourth quarter to see out games? I mean, how many times have our defense kept us in for our offense to go and score the winning drive or whatever, when the game should have been out of sight long before that? I still think that's what's keeping Moore out of a head coaching job. It's the consistency.
I wouldn't even say it's that. I would say what's keeping Kellen Moore out of a coaching job is how the season ends. That when you look last year, it ends with a poor offensive performance, beaten by the 49ers early in the playoffs. This year, same thing again. And like the questions we're asking when the Cowboys get kicked out of the playoffs last season are all the exact same questions we're asking this time. Nothing has changed. Nothing's changed. They're the same questions. And that's the trouble. That's what's keeping. So, like, he could probably go, because you think about it, when a GM's going to sit down and talk to him about a head coaching role, the very thing that's in that GM's mind is the last thing he watched. And the last thing he would have watched is an offensive performance both years in a row that have gone that direction.
Even Jerry Jones said, even Jerry Jones said he was sick. He felt sick after that game.
Yeah.
You don't often hear Jerry say that.
And I mean, how many times, last year when Kellen had multiple opportunities to interview for jobs, there was positive feedback about his interview process. And again, okay, Frank Reich's been hired by Carolina, but if you read what Rap Sheet says, that literally it went down to the wire between him and Kellen Moore, and obviously was the deciding factor was the way that the Cowboys offense finished up that last game. And I'm not necessarily talking about the weird and wacky Hail Mary play that we were going to run, but I mean, which I necessarily didn't have a problem with. The problem was that as soon as the 49ers called timeout, they had a chance to go and discuss it at the sideline. If there hadn't been a timeout and they'd run that, it might have been a bit more successful, but you're still talking that, we were odds on not to win that game anyway. At that particular point in time, I think you had a 0.01% chance of winning that game at that point in time on that last play, or even tying the game on it. So, but yeah, I mean, what gets me in that last game, we get the fumble on the special teams, we get first and goal at the 18, and we end up having to settle for a field goal, which is great. Maher kicked the field goal. Maher, exercised his demons. And obviously you saw the 49ers at the beginning of in warm-ups, they were trying their best to get inside his head, whether intentionally or not. But we should at first and 10 at the 18. You should have been converting that and getting points off that.
You were never going to win that game with field goals.
Yeah.
Nah, is the trouble.
See, if I'm sitting down in front of Kellen Moore with a head coaching position on the table, my first two questions are going to be, so Kellen, what happened against the Commanders and what happened against the Colts? And I would love to hear those answers. I would love to hear those answers.
So how did you turn it, or how did you turn around that first 3 quarters to the fourth quarter that you had? What changes did you make? How did you identify the problem in the offense, and why was that not? Well, this is the question I would have just but how is that not applied to some other games?
I mean, here we go. Here's a good one. So, talking about the front office, which is a big one for this year. So, front office needs to do better this offseason. So, obviously, about the free agent market. It is definitely a philosophy I think they need to change. We all talk about getting over the hump, but you look at the teams that have continued now, especially on the NFC side, into the playoffs. Look what they've done in free agency. You've got Christian McCaffrey. You got offensive lineman for the Eagles. They went out and got AJ Brown, which was a crazy move. They went out and they went into free agency, but the Cowboys refused to. They seem to try and wait for the bargain basement stuff to come through and then scramble through it. We talked about this before, that they draft really, really well, but their pro scouting is just questionable.
Right, so hear me out in this one.
Yeah.
Dallas seemed to be scared to do any big moves again since I can't remember who, but every time we've
Brandon
made,
Carr.
probably Brandon Carr. Like, never really turned out the player that we. Well, he was okay, but he wasn't worth trading up for. I thought. I think it's kind of hit Jerry's ego a little bit, and ever since then he's kind of taken that more conservative role. But with him being conservative now, he's really compromised himself as a general manager in a way to try and not make things happen. Like you see teams at like the Rams, they went all in a couple of years ago, and they won the Super Bowl. You're now seeing two teams in the NFC Championship have made big, massive moves, and now they're in the NFC Championship with that's been the Eagles and the 49ers. So, and they're constantly looking at and the thing is, they've got broken parts of their position skills, or like in some parts, like the Bengals, for example, their O-line's still battered and torn, even though they've recruited players, but they still managed to make it work. So
yeah. And it's for the Cowboys. A lot of it is down to, because I mean, there's a question here now, which I'll go to in a sec, but you talk about skilled players. The answer's the next question, but go on, Lon. You're going to say something there.
Well, the one thing I would say is, if the draft is a crapshoot or a lottery, so is free agency. You can have look at the guys who changed teams last year. Matt Ryan was supposed to be the savior for the Colts. Was supposed to be the one missing piece to stop, to allow them to go past the Titans in that division and win the division. They ended up, Matt Ryan went off the edge. Half the season they were playing with Sam Ellinger at quarterback and, various other people as well. You look at some teams like, who is it? Jacksonville. Jacksonville spent time this season to repair some of the damages from Urban Meyer, and they turned it around. They won that division. They surprised the Titans. But for you could say, but for a couple of questionable calls at the weekend, supposedly, they could have been going into the NFC Championship game this weekend. Once you get to, as Graham says, once you get to the postseason, it is a lottery. That's a lottery as well. It's a one and you're in. Lose and you go home sort of thing. So everything is all dependent on how everything gels and whether it's the right situation for these guys that you bring in as well.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, if we just go to this question, because it's going to answer, we can answer this question with what you said, Paul. So obviously,
Round two,
what we're saying here is Dak threw interceptions, second down, passing the ball when he doesn't need to. So basically, what to answer this question? Yeah, okay, we've got two brilliant running backs. Why doesn't he use them? That's a fair question. But in terms of Dak throwing the ball when he doesn't need to, is basically when you look at it, when that started going wrong, what happened previously? What happened previously is Pollard got carted off the field. So the Cowboys are already deficient at the skill position. We talk about Michael Gallup being a problem. Really, your only two skill position players that were producing at that point was CeeDee Lamb, which he did throw a lot to, and it was getting a bit obvious what the game plan was being, and Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz was being pretty much a non-factor at that point. But we was expecting that by the way the 49ers play. So you think about it, you've got a defense that is trying to pressure Dak to throw quickly. You've got a deficiency on your offensive skill players. So what's Dak going to do? The only thing he can do, take chances. So he's going to throw those balls. It's going to look weird and odd. And throughout the season, it's happened. Hence, one of the reasons. I'm not making excuses for Dak, because he wasn't good in that game. He's been bad in patches in games and entire games too. But a lot of the interceptions that are being thrown is Dak forcing the ball, but he's forcing the ball because of a lack of depth and quality at the skill position player. And one of the people who was supposed to provide you that depth was Jalen Tolbert.
That's true. And I do want to kind of say this as well. And Lauren made a point about what Mike McCarthy said about every player should be stepping up and contributing. If that was so much the case, when Tony Pollard went out, why didn't we feature more of Malik
I
Davis?
don't know that question. I don't know.
So, like
That's what I was going to ask you there. Yeah.
So I'm just like, if every player was supposed to be if every player's supposed to be there and be up for it and be ready to be on the field, then why is that not the case? Why are we still targeting our number one receiver and tight end, where we should be trying to keep these defenses guessing by and that's one thing we were successful last year, was distributing the ball to different players. And look what happened. Lamb got a 1,000-yard season. Gallup, despite he only had he missed games last year, he went on to have 800 plus yards. So, and same with Dalton Schultz, he had the 800 plus yards as well. So it was more spread out across. Whereas here it just seemed to be the two same names. Don't get me wrong. Like you've got T.Y. with Holton, he came in, he picked up some nice catches, etc., but not up to the same magnitude as Lamb or Schultz.
Yeah, I mean, here we go, Gray. You can answer this one as well from Steve.
Round 2.
Is that
fight?
He's saying, forgive me if I cover this, but it seems Dak has regressed when it comes to knowing where to throw the ball and when to throw it away rather than take chances. I mean, one of the things I would say to that before I let Graham answer is, because we talk about consistency and knowing where to throw. Bear in mind, Dak was out for a quarter of the season, which has thrown rhythm. And Gallup, more specifically, we've seen throughout the season where he's trying to target him, and Gallup's seems to be a step in the wrong place or the wrong time. And we see him making jump balls, Gallup, and he's jumping way too early. And you're just like, why is he jumping there? What are you doing there? But what do you think, Gray? Is there a reason? Do you think Dak has regressed? Or do you think that it's more of a play style or other players that have regressed around him?
This is going to sound like I'm making excuses for him. But my two thoughts on that are that he's America's team's quarterback. So there's always going to be pressure. Why haven't you regressed? Why haven't you done this? Why aren't your team in the Super Bowl? And that's going to be playing on his mind all the time. So he probably feels like he has to do more and more and more. The other question I would ask to that is, was this year's receiver core better or worse than last year's?
Worse.
I think we can all agree the receiver core wasn't as good as last year's.
Definitely.
So it's all part of the one big jigsaw. You lose Tyron Smith for the majority of the season. That's a step back already in the season that hasn't even started yet. Dak goes down with an injury. It seemed to add up so early in the season, but we got over it. And it looked good during the season. We seem to forget the good points and focus on the bad whenever things go bad. I don't know if he has regressed. What I will bring up at this point, though, is that he said in the post-game press conference that there will be less interceptions next year. How on earth does he know that? That's just a stupid thing to say. He doesn't know who his receiver core is going to be. He doesn't know what his offensive line is going to be like. Who's his OC? Yet he can come out and say things like, I'm going to throw less interceptions next year. Don't say stupid things, Dak.
Yeah. I just want to add something on to this as well. I think Dak has regressed. Not him as a player, but I think it's all down to how he's been coached, personally. I think the qualities, obviously, the quality of coaching is definitely dropped, and he's not getting the feedback in the game film as he used to. Saying, like we were trying to mention before, we're talking about the whole buddy relationship with Dak. on Kellen, there could be things where, not getting them told where you went wrong, don't do this, don't do that. That could be the main factor, and Dak is still trying to pursue that same play, and he's still getting caught out with it. He's not learning his lesson, and he's not getting told by his coaches by it.
Yeah, I mean, here we go. We got Mike Bull in the house, giving us one.
Round
So
fight.
he's saying here, Dak is a second-tier quarterback who needs weapons around him. So, okay, yeah, he needs weapons around him, something to call. I agree with the second part of that statement that he needs something else to complement CD Lamb. That's definitely for sure. We're missing a separator, whether that is through speed or through good route running. Something needs to be done there. But when he says about Dak needs weapons around him, and I put this in a tweet today. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers this year failed to make the playoffs. Has looked, not Aaron Rodgers-esque. The only thing that's changed, Davante Adams. So even the best quarterback to play the game at the moment, when he's missing a solid major weapon, all of a sudden he fails too. I mean, like any quarterback to me, I feel needs to have weapons, right? There's no quarterback who is that good. Do you know what I mean? They've got to have a connection with somebody, with something. And I know there's that with CD, but there's other things that are missing from this offense that's needed.
That's a great point about Rodgers because,
Yeah.
like as you all know, I watch Packers football every Sunday.
Yeah, of course.
The Packers wide receivers, it was too little, too late. They got better every single week. Christian, what's his name? The wide receiver, second round.
Watson.
Christian Watson.
Yeah.
He found some traction in November and December, but it's too little, too late, and they seem to come to the boil right when it was do or die, and they couldn't perform. I mean, make no mistake about it. In that division, if the Packers had Davante Adams, they win the division.
Oh yeah,
because the NFC North was murder last year. It was pretty bad. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of trust between quarterback and wide receiver, and see when you've got Michael Gallup doing that type of thing in the playoffs, you can understand why Dak wants to vent. Like he gets frustrated at Maher for missing field goals and so on. I'd love to know what he thought of his receivers.
Fair
there you
point.
go. There's another one.
But before we're gonna go more in depth for that, I don't know if someone just saw the previous comment, but Dan Quinn has informed interested teams that he is staying in Dallas per sources. Quinn was a top candidate for the Cardinals head coaching job, also interviewed for the Colts and Broncos, but his heart is in Dallas, and he has stated he wants to stay there and win a Super Bowl.
Here we go. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is?
It's going to be a big one.
Barry.
Where's that
Barry?
from, Paul? Oh, Barry. Right, okay.
Is that Barry?
Okay.
There.
It's Jamie.
Is that Jamie?
Oh, who said that's a big one?
That
That was Jamie. Hold on.
was it?
It's going to be a big one.
So yeah. I don't know why I thought that was Barry for a second.
I thought you meant the comment. I was like, well, clearly that's not.
No.
So, I mean, obviously, somewhere he's been offered, and Jerry, because there is no cap on coaching, has come in with a, we're going to hear more as it comes in that, that he's going to have a bigger contract somehow. But here we go. I love it. I love it. Here we go. We have a disagreement.
Finish him.
So,
Fatality.
so what we got is Big Lebowski, always good to you, saying he's not completely with me. He thinks that if you put Rodgers on this team, he outperforms Dak. That I agree with, yeah, because Rodgers is a better quarterback. He's not making the right reads. He overthrows, underthrows, and thrown behind wide receivers. Again, though, that's going back to my original statement about what Dak has done this year is because of a lack of skilled players, especially at the wide receiver position. He has forced the ball a lot, especially under under pressure and what have you. We talk about how good he is under pressure. A lot of some of that, and on third down too as well. A third down rate, conversion rate is through the roof for Dallas. And a lot of that is down to Dak just taking chances because he's had to. He has taken chances.
Just about the NFL.com are running with the Dan Quinn story as well. So it must be confirmed.
Yeah, it's confirmed. Yeah, the source I had was Tom Palacio.
Yeah.
Yeah, for NFL Network Insider.
I mean, what I would say is that, you know, Aaron Rodgers has dropped off this year as well. He has had a down year in terms of how he's played. Now, he's had the broken finger or broken thumb as well. That was the whole thing that was reported. Funnily enough, after he was playing us, that it was reported that he'd broken his finger in that Giants game in London. You know, but he was continuing to battle through it. But you know, Aaron Rodgers was not on the same page with his players. You know, his wide receivers for most of the season. Yes, finally, what's his name caught on a tear at the end. You know, funnily enough, playing us. But you know, he was missing his guy that jumped to the Vegas Raiders as well. So you know, his performance went down this year as well. I don't know. Again, on a poor receiving core as ours is supposed to be, which, you know, again, we just weren't getting the performance from these guys. You know, if it's another season, are these guys going to be any better? You know, if they're working together, and it's all to do with the coaching and how everything interlinks within the practice during the week and how it performs on the game.
True.
I do find it fun that Devontae Adams moved to Raiders to play with a quarterback that won't be there next season.
Yeah. Ironically, Adams had a really big season too. He was really good.
He's a stud. He is a stud.
Oh yeah.
But like I brought up the point. Obviously, I think we're still on Dak. I brought up the point that Kellen Moore is a Marmite coach. It was only a week last Sunday that Dak threw for 305 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the ball hit the ground 8 times. So, you know,
oh, Brian.
If that Dak turned up on Sunday, we'd have won. So, you know, what do you do with that? I mean,
there we go.
I still maintain that if Dak hit the open market, if he hit the open market, form an orderly queue.
Yeah. And here you go. I mean, Mike Bull putting his rant in pretty much is saying what we all agree with, that, you know, they took away Amari Cooper, didn't replace him. So they tried to do that with Jalen Tolbert, who is inactive all year. And all I'm saying is expect a little bit more. You really think a guy who's inactive all year is suddenly going to sprout up and be a active wide receiver next year? You might have to wait a bit longer. I do agree with the mobile running plays.
Finish him.
I do agree with that.
Fatality.
I mean, when you look at it, when you look at it, Dak, when he's on, and you said it before, Lorne, that when he's around the 24 rush mark, he's like, he's won every game. And
Yeah.
you've seen it in the Tampa game that he's flowing, he's moving. They're even putting in some design run plays on the bootleg, and you see it. And it is a totally different game script when that happens, and it's weird why they move away from it. Because I mean, the thing is Dak, when you look at it, he's not built like a quarterback already. He's built more like a linebacker, and that coming at you is a scary thing to try and bring down.
Yeah, and I mean, 9 times out of 10, Dak won't slide as well. He'll dive forward for the first down or whatever. So yeah, you do need to try and make more of his legs. I think last year it was a case of, again, he was coming back from the foot injury last year. This is the year that he suddenly felt comfortable, and we have seen more runs from him, but again, they've not been designed runs. It's either been, or the majority of them been when there's absolutely been nothing there. But Dak, he's still looking to pass the ball more often than not. I mean, that first interception on the throw to Gallup with the check down, or the curl route. I mean, that should have been, he'd pump faked a couple of times. He should have, on the third one, he should have actually run the ball, because the defensive backs were reading that, and that's why they get the 49ers DB was there to pick it off. It's little intricacies that aren't being picked up in the weekly discussions with him and the grading of the film and what have you. Somebody isn't there, almost needs to be standing there with a rod and hitting him every time he does something wrong. There's nobody there to chastise him. And that's not getting rid of it's not deterring him from making these mistakes over and over and over again. Now, I don't know what Dak does during the off season, if he's got somebody like the offensive line do with Duke Manyweather, whether Dak's got some sort of personal consultant that he goes to see as well and work on things. But they should work on getting him to see the field a lot better this year, because, I mean, you obviously, Baldinger picked up on the play that he should have picked up on, where the throw to, I think it was CD Lamb, but T.Y. Hilton was wide open with nobody over him at all, and there would have been a surefire touchdown. Same with, what was it, the kickoff return where Kevontae Turpin had options but decided to cut it back into the middle. If he'd carried on going to the outside, he was left wide open, but because he cut it back into the middle, he was there and the kicker took him down. There's little things like that you just need to iron these things out, and that's through somebody getting in your face and actually telling you off, or reprimanding you for it and holding you accountable for it. And that's what he needs to do. He needs to sit down with somebody who's going to do that, either on the Cowboys staff or actually somebody that he hires during the off season to do his training with.
Yeah, and Rabarski is kind of agreeing with sentiments that we said at the start of the show, Greg,
Round one,
that he wants to see what Dak is like with a different OC. That's the way to really find out what you've got, and then for sure. It's just that it's a gamble. It's a huge hit, because it might be the case that the OC you bring in is even further in terms of play disparity of what Dak's after, and that makes Dak look bad. So it has to be, if it's going to be a move, it has to be the right move. And great, Brian here saying that
fight.
Yeah, it's going to be bringing in one of the main wide receivers. Could be one of those guys early in the draft. I mean, we can look at.
Would you like me to spice up the comments?
Yeah.
Hopefully spice up the comments. I like to throw a spanner in the works.
Oh dear.
All right. I've got a scenario for
Finish him. Fatality.
I'll take that as a yes. Right. I saw a theory on Twitter And straight away I thought, nah, absolute nonsense. No way they're going to do that. What a stupid thing that would be. Right, but hear me out. You trade Dak for a 1 to the Commanders. Okay? No, stick with me. Stick with me. This is not my theory. I'm not taking any credit for this theory. I saw it on Twitter. You trade Dak to the Commanders for a 1, right? And you cut Tyron Smith. All of a sudden, you've got 2 first-rounders and, get this, $40 million in cap space. So that's Tony Pollard, that's CD Lamb, that's number 7 as well. And you give up the 2 1s next year and go and get Bryce Young.
Bryce Young.
So you can have any free agents hitting the market, you can bring back. You keep Pollard, you keep CD Lamb, you keep anybody like LVE. You burn the $18 million, but you get $31 million back. Remember, that cap hit next year is $49 million.
Here's a question for you, right, Gray? Here's a question for you.
Round 1, fight.
Easy question.
If I was to decide right now, see, Big Lebowski's throwing this in for me. He knows he's fishing here. Who am I getting? Who's replacing them?
Exactly.
There'll be plenty of OCs from college you can get. There's
Just throw out a couple of examples. I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know, but I would need to know. I mean, if he goes, that's not really up to the Cowboys, and it's not really the Cowboys' decision. But if they get rid of him, that is the Cowboys' decision, and he could go somewhere and be brilliant. Whereas if somebody picks him up, somebody signs him as a head coach, and he goes off and is brilliant, the Cowboys can say, well, we'll let the guy go. Good luck to him. I would need to know who's available and who my options are. I mean, like you were saying, Mike, it is a merry-go-round. I'm just seeing the stories from today. Nathaniel Hackett is now the new coordinator at the Jets. So it's just this massive merry-go-round. You go from head coach to OC to head coach to DC to, there's very, very new opportunities. I mean, if you're going to offer me Eric Bieniemy, I would fly Kellen Moore to the airport myself, or drive Kellen Moore to the airport myself. But who's coming in? I would need to know that first before I said goodbye to him.
Yeah, well, I mean, while you're going to talk, right? Here we are. I'll answer this one. Would you go that way?
Round 2, fight.
Can you guarantee he is going to be?
True.
He is going to be successful in this situation. I mean, again, you look at somebody like Bill Belichick goes to Cleveland. Now the situation wasn't right for him there, but he learned from that and built on that, and obviously turned in the career that he did in New England. But quite easily he could have been thrown on the scrap heap. Some can say he was a weapon boy as well for Art Modell, because Art Modell had already decided he was moving the team to Baltimore. And all he needed was a named coach so that he could actually promote it to Baltimore as much as he did for Cleveland. But, again, it's who are you bringing up? Because invariably, the guys that you'll be bringing up are either coming out of the college game and they need to adjust to the pro game, or you're bringing somebody who is a wide receivers coach, an offensive line coach, something like that, and promoting up from a positional coach. And again, at some point you get to a level where they're at their competence level. Guys like Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips was a great defensive coordinator. You promote him to a head coach, and then he's got extra responsibilities. Can he handle that? you could say, yes, he was all right on an interim basis, but as soon as he became the head coach, things started to, the actual head coach, that's when things started to go downhill for him. So he knew, and this is probably why, again, Dan Quinn is sticking with us. He knows that he's a better defensive coordinator. He could, unless this is a perfect job situation for him to go in, what's the point of him taking a job and then again, something happens, he doesn't gel with the guys that he's got on the team, he's a one and done coach because things haven't worked out in that first season. Teams are far too quick to actually get rid of players at the moment, or get rid of coaches at the moment.
I mean, see, when you think teams in a playoff position are not hiring coordinators, so it's not, even if he was to go somewhere, it would be as the coordinator, it would be a sideways move. So, like you're saying, he maybe just enjoys what he does with the group of players that he does under the big spotlight in Dallas. I'd imagine he'll remember pretty well what it was like in Atlanta, and it wasn't too long ago. Do you want to stay with a top? You could argue top 5. I think you could get away with that argument. Top 5 defense, or do you want to go somewhere that doesn't have a quarterback? Being a defensive guy, you're relying on an offensive guy to pick your quarterback and have your say on who the next quarterback is.
I've got a name I'm thinking of right now, and he's just actually, he's no longer a head coach in college, and that's David Shaw from Stanford. That's one guy I've been thinking about.
Tic tac, sir.
Because I'm looking at his resume right now. So he was an Eagles offensive quality coach. Then he became the quarterbacks coach for the Raiders, then the Ravens, then went to San Diego. Then he spent almost 2 decades at Stanford. And look at some of the players. Look at some of the players that came out of Stanford.
I mean, again, maybe we've got the next offensive coordinator on the staff already. You got Marty Schottenheimer's kid, Brian.
Good shot.
He's been doing a job for Dan Quinn this season, where he's coming up with what the scout team are going to do against the Dan Quinn defense, so that Dan Quinn can then actually come up with the game plan to counter that. So there's obviously somebody who's got ideas about offensive coordinators. He has been an offensive coordinator in the past as well. So again, you've got that. You got Nussmeier, who was a coach in college as well. So and I think he's also had offensive coordinator experience as well. So you got guys there. But again, can you guarantee that they're going to get the best out of each player? They need to actually understand what each player has, and know how to motivate these guys, know how to do that. And it really is almost every year you need to catch lightning in a bottle.
In response to Joe there, I'd say they're the same in terms of offensive coordinator.
But there's definitely more of a coach to player rather than 2 former teammates near a coach relationship.
Yeah.
Byron Leftwich might be available.
Who?
Byron Leftwich.
Ooh. Interesting.
Well,
Depending on who gets the Tampa job.
Again, he's away. He's been released.
Oh, okay.
He was released 2 days after the loss last week against the Cowboys.
That's right.
And if you remember, Byron Leftwich was one of the guys that was in. He was in as many head coaching interviews last year as Dan Quinn was.
Yeah.
So he was a big name last year, and then this year he, as soon as obviously, as soon as Todd Bowles decides that, he's, Byron Leftwich isn't his guy anymore, that's it. Cast him off.
Yeah. But there we have it then, guys. Should we wrap this up and get out of here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hit the road.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh my god.
So
I like the test running these sound clips, but we need to get better quality ones.
Can we go back in time to the early 90s when we were winning things?
That's right. There you go. You can stuff that's about. Go on then, Lorne. Hit us with it.
Right. So obviously this podcast is sponsored by Cowboys Experience. If you're going to a game this season coming, obviously boot through Cowboys Experience for the ultimate meet and greet, stadium tours, game tickets, tailgating, and much, much more. Get to meet players like Micah Parsons, Ed Two-Tole Jones, Zach Martin, Drew Pearson, Jay Novacek as well. And if you're going through Cowboys Experience, tell them that we sent you. Use the code UK Cowboys, and they'll treat you like absolute royalty, and they'll give you
free stuff.
And obviously, go and check out all these amazing other podcasts and content creators, and find Paul and myself. I work on Blogging the Boys. Paul, hit me with this, mate. When are we going? Let everyone know.
Yes, guys, we are planning going to Dallas and for the Thanksgiving week for the 2023 season. So we've got the Dallas 2020 travel package with our sponsored Cowboys Experience, where it will include the game tickets, the tours, the meet and greets, and so much more. Be sure to be get in touch with us or go to Cowboys Experience and check our Facebook group for more further details.
Yes, go on our social media. You'll find it there. And just to finish off before we go, I'm just going to give you this, Paul.
Put your hands on the pavement. There is no pavement. Well, then put them on the oodles or noodles. Put them on the noodles. Chicken or beef? Chicken.
Is that from Blue Streak?
Yeah.
Why? It's just so random.
I know. I thought that would really throw you.
I'm done tonight. I'm done. I'm done.
Just like our season.
There we have it, guys. It's not going to be all depressing. We will be back next Thursday. So we won't be here on Tuesday while we flip the show around onto the draft show. So we'll be back next Thursday for the draft show. But keep an eye on our social media on Monday, because there'll be details on how you can phone in to the show. So yes, you can have your voice played on the show, and we'll explain all on Monday. So make sure you check that out, because now we've got it going. It's all going on here. It's all going. But mates, you all get the last word, as we always do every week. Finish the show out, guys, and we'll get the hell out of here.
All right, guys, have a good weekend. Anyone but Philly. Dallas forever, Philly for never.
Yep. Go 49ers for this weekend, and then go AFC in the Super Bowl.
We won the Dan Quinn Bowl, at least.
Yay!
Let's finish on that.